How many of you find yourself lying awake at 3 a.m., your brain spinning through the same thoughts over and over again? The same worry, the same what if, the same conversation you had weeks ago that you're still mentally rewriting. You're not broken and you're not crazy. Many of us go through this, and I'll share 4 reasons why and 5 ways to stop that anxiety loop. This podcast is about simple changes to create more calm and peace in your life. You don't have to feel overwhelmed and overhaul your whole life all at once. To get to your better life, make small changes and begin to live it. Welcome back, my friends, or welcome for the very first time. However you found your way here today, I'm genuinely glad that you pressed play. Get comfortable, take a breath, and in fact, I want to start incorporating a few centering breaths before we begin our podcasts. And if you listened to last week's episode on using your vagus nerve to calm you in 5 minutes, you'll know that a longer breath out will activate it and put you in an immediate place of peace. So let's breathe in for 5 and out longer for 7 for just 3 rounds. In 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. In 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. In 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now today we're going to talk about anxiety. Not in a clinical textbook, here's a list of symptoms kind of way. Instead, we're going to talk about it honestly, warmly, and with real tools that you can actually use. We're going to talk about why your brain gets stuck in these loops in the first place, because understanding the why is one of the most powerful first steps towards change. And we're going to talk about what's really happening inside your body when anxiety takes hold. And then we're going to talk about how to begin gently, practically, sustainably to loosen anxiety's grip and create more space for calm, clarity, and peace. Now, the first thing I want you to hear is that anxiety does not have to run your life. It doesn't have to be the loudest voice in the room. And the second thing is that you are very normal. You're a very normal, relatable, but very understandably overwhelmed human being in a world that hypes up your nervous system with very little breaks in between. But you also need to hear that you have far more power over anxiety than you may think. So let's get into it. Let's start with the loop itself, because I think once you understand what's actually happening in your brain and your body when anxiety takes hold, it becomes less mysterious and less frightening. It starts to feel like something you can actually work with instead of something that's just happening to you. And here's the basic version of what's going on. Your brain has one primary overriding job, and that job is to keep you alive. That's it. Everything your brain does, every thought, every reaction, every emotion is in service of that one goal. And one of the most important tools your brain has for keeping you alive is its threat detection system. It's a small almond-shaped structure deep in your brain called the amygdala. Now, the amygdala is your brain's alarm system. When it perceives a threat, real or not, it fires off a signal that triggers your fight or flight response, so that stress hormones flood your body, your heart rate increases, your muscles tense, and your breathing gets shallow. Your attention narrows to focus entirely on that perceived threat. And for most of human history, it kept us alive. So when a predator was nearby, this response helped us run or fight. It was fast, effective, and it worked. The problem is that your amygdala cannot tell the difference between a physical threat and an emotional one. It can't distinguish between a tiger and a difficult email from your boss, between actual danger and the possibility of someone being disappointed in you. To your amygdala, a threat is a threat is a threat, so it fires the same alarm for all of them, and that's where the loop begins. When your amygdala fires that alarm, your thinking brain, or the prefrontal cortex that's responsible for rational thought, perspective, and problem solving, it actually goes partially offline. Stress response literally reduces blood flow to the prefrontal cortex because in a genuine survival emergency, you don't need to think clearly and rationally, you just need to react fast. But when the threat is not a tiger, when it's a worry, a fear, a what if, you're left with a brain that's stuck in alarm mode without the rational thinking tools to calm it back down. So the thought creates anxiety, which makes rational thinking harder, which then makes the anxious thought feel more threatening, which creates more anxiety, and around you go. 3 a.m. brain fully activated, the same thoughts circling like planes that can't land. Now that you understand it, you can see the loop is not a character flaw or that something's wrong with you. It's your brain doing exactly what it was designed to do. It just got a little confused about what constitutes an actual emergency. But the good news is that you have the power to remove that confusion. And anxiety is not just a mental experience, it's a full body experience. In fact, for many people, the body registers anxiety before the conscious mind does. Before you've even identified the thought, your stomach is tight, your shoulders are up around your ears, your jaw's clenched, and your chest feels heavy. Your body's keeping score long before your brain has even named the game. And this matters for a couple of reasons. First, it means that trying to think your way out of anxiety is often not enough because the anxiety isn't just in your thoughts, it's in your body and it's stored in your muscles and your gut and your nervous system. And if we only address the thinking part while ignoring the body part, we're only solving half the equation. And second, it means that your body is actually one of your most powerful tools for interrupting the anxiety loop. Because just as the body responds to anxious thoughts by going into alarm mode, it can also respond to specific physical signals by coming back out of alarm mode. Your body's not just a passenger in the anxiety experience. It's an active participant that you can actually communicate with. And learning to speak your body's language through breath, through movement, is one of the most effective and immediate anxiety interventions available to you. Think about the last time you took a really long, slow, deliberate breath and you felt your shoulders drop. That wasn't just a nice feeling. That was your nervous system receiving a message from your body that said, "We're safe." That was your vagus nerve activating your parasympathetic system and beginning to put the brakes on the fight or flight response. That one breath was doing real physiological work. Your body wants to help you. It wants to come back to calm. It's always reaching for regulation. And when you learn to work with it instead of fighting against it or ignoring it, you give yourself access to a level of peace that no amount of thinking alone can produce. Now, let's talk about the things that keep the anxiety loop spinning, because understanding what feeds it is just as important as understanding how to interrupt it. And I want you to understand these are things most of us do, usually with the best intentions, that actually make anxiety worse rather than better. The first is avoidance. When something makes us anxious, the most natural human response in the world is to avoid it. We cancel the difficult conversation, we don't open the email, we put off the doctor's appointment, and instead we scroll through social media instead of sitting with that uncomfortable feeling. And avoidance does in fact work in the short term. It reduces anxiety in the moment, but it teaches your brain that the avoided thing is really dangerous, which makes the anxiety around it grow bigger and stickier over time. Avoidance is anxiety's best friend and our worst enemy. The second loop feeder is reassurance seeking. So, texting a friend to ask if you think they're upset with you, Googling your symptoms for the 14th time, asking someone over and over, "Is everything okay?" Like avoidance, reassurance works temporarily, but maintains the anxiety long term because it tells your brain that you can't tolerate the uncertainty without external help. And since life is full of uncertainty, your brain stays in a state of needing that reassurance. The third is future catastrophizing. So, when you mentally fast forward to the worst possible outcome and then you live there emotionally as if it's already happened. Your brain, trying to help, think it's preparing you for the worst. But what it's actually doing is causing you to experience the emotional pain of a thing that hasn't happened and may never happen. And research consistently shows that humans are really bad at predicting what will actually go wrong, and even worse, at predicting how well we would cope if it did go wrong. And the fourth is the worst of all, fighting the anxiety itself, telling yourself you shouldn't feel this way, being angry at yourself for being anxious, trying to force calm, suppress the feeling, or shaming yourself into peace. This resistance and war against your own nervous system actually activates more threat response. Your brain sees the anxiety as something to be alarmed about, which creates more alarm, which creates more anxiety. Fighting anxiety is like trying to put out fire with gasoline. What anxiety needs is not resistance, but acknowledgement and then gentle redirection. So let's talk about what actually helps. But let's be clear that this is not about eliminating anxiety from your life completely, because a life without any anxiety is impossible and actually not helpful. Some anxiety is protective and useful. What we're talking about is breaking the loop and turning down the volume so that anxiety is information you can work with rather than a storm you're just surviving. The very first and most powerful tool is something you already have access to right now, which is your breath, specifically slow, extended exhale breathing. Breathing in for a count of 5 like we did, and out for a count of 7 or 8, or just out longer than in. This directly activates the vagus nerve and signals your nervous system to begin downshifting from alarm to calm. Sounds almost too simple to be true, but the research behind it is extraordinary. Even 5 minutes of this kind of breathing really reduces cortisol, slows heart rate, and begins to bring the prefrontal cortex, that rational thinking brain, back online. And the beautiful thing is it's always available to you, and no one even needs to know that you're doing it. The second tool is naming what you're feeling. Research by Dr. Matthew Lieberman at UCLA found that simply labeling an emotion, saying to yourself, "I'm feeling anxious right now," reduces activity in the amygdala. The act of naming the feeling engages the prefrontal cortex, which creates a tiny but real separation between you and the emotion. Not saying you are anxious, but that you're feeling anxious tells your brain you're not the anxiety. You're the person noticing the anxiety. And it's a small but powerful change. The third tool is grounding in the present moment through your senses. Anxiety lives almost exclusively in the future, in the what ifs, the maybes, the worst case scenarios. But your senses only exist in the present. So when you deliberately bring your attention back to what you can see, hear, feel, smell, or taste right now, you're physically pulling your nervous system out of the future and back into the only place where you're actually safe, right here, right now. It's the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding method of focusing on 5 things you can see, then 4 you can hear, 3 you can feel, 2 you can smell, and 1 you can taste, which creates a neurological interruption of that anxiety loop. The fourth tool is movement. Gentle, rhythmic, repetitive movement like walking or swimming or cycling or running has been consistently shown to reduce anxiety by completing the stress cycle that anxiety activates. Your body gears up for fight or flight, and the movement tells your body that the threat has passed, that you ran, that you're okay, that it's safe to come back down. A 10-minute walk is not just good for your physical health, it's one of the most effective anxiety interventions that we have. And the fifth tool, the one that may be the hardest, is compassionate self-talk. When the loop is spinning and you're in the thick of it, the way you speak to yourself matters enormously. Most of us, in moments of anxiety, go to war with ourselves. We tell ourselves we're being ridiculous, that other people don't feel this way, that we need to pull it together. And that war makes everything worse. What your nervous system actually needs in those moments is the same thing a frightened child needs. Not criticism, not dismissal, but warmth. Place your hand on your heart as a personal hug and say, "I hear you. This feels scary. You're safe, but we're going to be okay." It's one of the most neurologically effective things you can do to begin calming the alarm system down. Breaking the anxiety loop in the moment is important, but building a life that creates more calm as the baseline is where the real long-term transformation happens. And the good news is that this doesn't require a major life overhaul. It requires small, consistent choices made regularly over time, as we're always about here, little by little. Sleep matters more than almost anything else for anxiety. When you're sleep deprived, your amygdala becomes significantly more reactive, and studies have shown it fires up to 60% more intensely in response to stress after a poor night's sleep. So protecting your peace is one of the most direct and powerful things you can do to reduce anxiety's hold on your life. And reducing the inputs that feed your nervous system's threat detection is equally important. The negative news on TV, social media pings, they're intended to create fear and uncertainty because that's what makes you watch more. So stop watching negative news all day because it's keeping your amygdala in a near constant low-level state of alert. NPR has a great 5-minute daily news podcast that I listen to. It's just facts, no fear, no comments. And if you don't like NPR, then find another short way to see what's going on in the world. But also look for positive news to offset. Things are not as bad as they seem because that's all we're hearing. Choosing intentionally what you let into your nervous system and when is a profound act of self-care that costs nothing and changes everything. Just like you need a balanced diet for your body, you need a balanced diet for your mind. If you feed both crap, you'll feel like crap. If you feed both healthy options, you will feel healthier. Connection is also a powerful anxiety buffer, and not just social media or surface connection, but genuine, warm, safe human connection. Being truly seen and heard by another person activates the same calming pathways as all the other tools we've talked about. We humans regulate each other's nervous systems. We calm each other down just by being genuinely present with each other. So reaching out, showing up, allowing yourself to be known, these are not luxuries, they're necessities for a regulated and calm nervous system. And finally, building a regular practice of any of these tools that we've talked about, daily breath work, nature walks, body check-ins, compassionate self-talk, it creates what researchers call vagal tone, a kind of resilience in your nervous system that makes you less reactive to stress over time. And you don't have to do all of it, and you don't have to do it perfectly. You just have to do something consistently, gently, and with grace and kindness towards yourself. So as we close today, I hope that something in today's conversation has shifted something for you. I hope you understand a little better why your brain does what it does, and I hope you feel a little less alone in it and a little more equipped to work with it. So your challenge this week is simple. The next time you notice the loop starting, the circling thoughts, the tight chest, the 3 a.m. spiral, pause before you do anything else. Take 3 slow breaths, longer out than in. Name what you're feeling out loud or in your head, and say something kind to yourself. Just those few little things. And if this episode helped you breathe a little easier today, please share it with someone who needs it, because someone in your life is lying awake at 3 a.m. right now, thinking they're the only one who feels this way, and they need to know that they're not. Remember, your brain is not your enemy, and neither is your anxiety. They're both trying in their own imperfect way to take care of you. And now that you understand the loop, now that you can see it for what it is, you now know you have the power to gently, compassionately begin to step out of it. You don't have to fix everything today. You just have to take one small step, one breath, one moment of naming what you feel, one 10-minute walk, one gentle word towards yourself instead of a harsh one. That's enough. And that's exactly how peace from the anxiety loop is built. Not in one dramatic breakthrough moment, but in 100 small, quiet, courageous choices to choose calm over chaos, presence over worry, and kindness towards yourself over everything else, little by little and piece by piece. This podcast is based on my own life experiences. I'm not a therapist, a psychologist, psychiatrist, or any other licensed medical professional. Please share this podcast with anyone you think needs to hear this so that we all move forward, little by little and piece by piece. And thank you, Purple Planet, for sharing your music. And please hit the follow or subscribe button. It really does help.